All right, gentlemen, we are max prestige with all the classes, so we're going to go through and kind of tell you where I have each of these prestige perks sitting in a tier list, and then we'll get into overall just what classes I felt, benefited the most from their prestige tree that they ended up getting. So first up, we'll go right into our D tier. And when it comes to our D tier, these are basically the ones that you're not going to want to take on mostly any class. These are going to be related to giving you negative status effects, curing them, which that's not impactful in the game. Also, grabbing ammo boxes to refill certain things, like ability charge and stuff like that, which then you're taking ammo from other people on your team that may need it. And another one in here that could be good is the top one there, Emperor's Grace for the sniper, but it does not pair with your break cloak, and then you remain cloaked for 2 seconds. Those two do not pair together, so when it's messing up one of the best perks on your tree, you're definitely not going to want to take it. So until they fix Emperor's Grace, it's going to stay here on the D tiers. And then when we were getting on the C tiers, these are some that you're going to want to take on some classes, but in comparison overall to the scope of all of the prestige perks, they are just average. So we have Resilience here. Medicare Stims restores 40% health. Like I said, this is not a horrible one, and it will give you 2 full bars of red health now. And then you have Skilled Supplier. Ammo reserve increases by 15%. On some guns, 15% ammo is actually a decent amount. Then we have Scrambled Targeting. If you're surrounded by 5 or more enemies, you take 20% less damage from ranged attacks. Indomitable Spirit. While performing a gun strike, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits. Restoration, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores armor segment cooldown is 15 seconds. And then our last one up here is Standard Bearer. When your chapter banner activates, you become invulnerable for damage for 2 seconds. So like I said, in the overall scope of things, these are more of the average perks, but you can tie these into some builds, I'm sure, and find some use in these ones. They are a lot better than the D tiers. And then when we're looking at our B tier perks, these are all good perks, and this is where you're going to probably want to start picking up from the B tier up in certain classes here. So our first one up we're going to look at is Practice Aim. Range damage increases by 15%. So this is just teetering on A tier, and I'll tell you kind of why it's not an A tier in a second. And then next up we have Battlefield Awareness. This is your vanguards. If a target is within 8 meters, you deal 10% more range damage. Another very strong one. Fortitude, more health is definitely B tier for me. Well equipped, equipment damage increases by 20%. So when you're pairing that up with your equipment perk that gives you more equipment, this one becomes very powerful on the vanguard. You have Acuity, which is going to make your bolt weapons a lot better. It's just unfortunate that this does not tie to the best tactical builds, which are his Plasma Incinerator and his Melta builds. You get no benefit from Acuity. And then Auxiliary Reload, another one that is good in higher tier difficulties and probably will become very important in Horde mode. The main drawback on it is melee kills. I think they do need to change that to just kills of extremist level or higher enemies. There's not that many anyway, and it should just be any type of kill, so hopefully they change that. But this is still a good perk as long as you're using it properly. And then Launch Restoration. This one ended up being a lot better than I thought, but it will give you 1 armor segment every time you use your grapple. And then these last 2 right here are on the heavy, which is really filling in some gaps on the class. It's going to give you a radius effect of 50% on your stomp, and then also 100% melee damage on your stomp as well. So Reverberating Impact, Exponential Force, very, very good, both of these. And they help out the class a lot. So next up we have our A tiers, and these ones you're picking up no matter what. These are very strong for whoever they are available for. You have Adrenaline Boost. After a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits. And this is one of the main things that gets you killed. You get stuck in your knockback animation, and then you just get hit by 2 major hits, and that will take you down. So Adrenaline Boost is a very important one. And then we have next up Powerful Shot. Range damage increases by 20%. So that's why you're seeing that the other one, that the Assault's range damage increases by 15%, is landing in B tier. And it's only really because I didn't feel right putting a 20% one and a 15% both in A tier. So 15% is still very good. And then we have Conviction up over all the way to the right here. When your armor is fully depleted, you take 25% less health damage for 15 seconds. This is almost just a permanent 25% less health damage because you're just up and out of your armor constantly. So Conviction, don't let this one go under the radar. It's a very, very strong perk. And then we have overcharge, which is affecting just a lot of heavy attacks on your melee weapons, and then just your charge attacks on your power fists and things like that. So this is a very, very strong one. And then we have exacting focus. After a gun strike, you deal 20% more range damage for 10 seconds. You know, any tacticals know this is a very good perk. Most people even take it on their tacticals tree, and I think you're only losing like 5% range damage, so this is a very strong one. And then we're going to finish it up here with versatility. After switching weapons, your secondary weapon deals 20% more damage. You know, this is very far on people's trees as well, and it is a top tier perk. It works best with the plasma, but it is still very strong and effective on the heavy bolt pistol as well. And then when we are looking at our top 3 perks here, on our S tier, it is going to be our versatile precision, which, I mean, this is nearly as good as Emperor's Grace. In the short term, it's probably a little better than Emperor's Grace, but in the long term, Emperor's Grace, you know, you're not going to run out of majors to kill, so you will run out of secondary ammo. But, you know, second best ammo perk in the entire game by far, and it's very, very efficient at keeping your ammo up as long as you're switching to your secondary, and 15 seconds is such a fast cooldown. And then next up we have Masterful Defense, which is just filling up the Bulwark's ability charge so fast. And, you know, any class that could get any kind of ability charge like this one is giving you would be definitely taking it. And then last up here, we have Duelist. Perfect parry and perfect block windows increases by 25%. That is a big, big jump. And it's really nice for, obviously, your parry weapons, but this is really huge for anybody who runs blocking weapons, because having the extra 25% window is going to be a very beneficial thing. So when it comes to these 3 perks right here, why they're in S tier is because basically I think if these were in like a normal tree, you would definitely sacrifice other perks to grab these. They are you know, they're that powerful overall in the game. And the A tier ones as well, they're right there, that you would actually, you know, consider taking these over other perks in your tree. So that is why the S and the A tiers are, you know, basically landing where they are for me. Okay, and just quickly, we'll go over who I thought was like the biggest winners overall with their prestige trees here. So the 2 biggest winners that I think gained like a 25 to 30% power gain are going to be the Bulwark and the Sniper. The Bulwark felt fantastic going through his tree. All of these felt very, very impactful to the class. And like I said, he has one of the best ones in Masterful Defense in the entire game. And then the Sniper, the same thing with him. He has one of the best ones in gaining him ammunition. And then he has some damage reduction and just a lot of damage multipliers that he can now add on to the class. So these 2, I think, definitely ended up with the most power gain throughout the game. Like I said, I think they got like a 30% power gain. And then the next up, which is very, very close to them, I would say he can probably gain up to like a 20% power gain here with his perfect parry and perfect block window being increased. He's getting a 15% onto his range damage. He's getting 15% added onto his health. And then he is grabbing a very important one for the class here, an adrenaline boost, which is going to give you immunity to knockback after a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge. So definitely the third one, not too far behind the Sniper and the Bulwark, is going to be the Assault. And I'm going to follow them by the Vanguard and the Heavy. Those 2 felt really good going through their trees, and I would say they gained about a 15% power gain overall, just by throwing on their prestige perks. And then the lowest one when it comes to just your prestige perks overall, and the Heavy right here, he grabbed really, really important ones for the class. I think this is very nice having when your armor is fully depleted for your 25%. And then this one, Duelist, is just so important to have on the Heavy because of just how his parrying works and things like that. So very great for the Heavy in general. And then the worst one up here was the Tactical. I would say in general, like if you're not running a bolt weapon, then you're probably gaining maybe only like a 5% power gain in general when it just comes to your prestige perks. If you're running a bolt weapon, it's definitely going to be more like a 10% power gain, because as long as you're hitting headshots, this is actually going to help out a lot. But this will not affect your Plasma Incinerator or your Melta Rifle builds. So that's, that's kind of an issue. And then the main thing about the Tactical, where he gained his power, was from these additions to his secondary weapons. So his bolt guns in general all gained a lot of power because their new trees are a lot better. But then his main power gain, I really do think, came from his secondary with the addition of the plasma pistol and the heavy bolt pistol being so much better than the bolt pistol that you're gaining, a good amount of power that way. So overall, I had a good time going through all of the different classes. The main issue for me was definitely the servers. Huge problems when it came to connectivity. Other than that, content-wise, I give this patch like easily like an 8.5 to a 9. There was a ton of content. They have like 30 prestige ranks. There is a rework to nearly every single weapon in the game when it comes to their tree. And then on top of that, we got the new operation, and it has a boss in it and things like that. So with and we got a new weapon. So content-wise, I think they did a great job. It was just, I cannot believe they still had problems with the servers like we did. And especially with, they seen how bad the servers were on the day that it dropped. I can't believe that they didn't get it fixed by the weekend. But they did end up dropping patch 7.1, which I have had a lot more success grabbing matches and having really no issues with connectivity since then. But like I said, it was one weekend too late. But overall, I had a good time going through all the classes. I'm going to have a ton of content coming out for every class in the game. And I really do appreciate you guys checking out this video right here.